welcome to Morlock Me. This is a weekly podcast where we discuss books and their cinematic or TV adaptations. My name's Charlie, and my co-host here is Al.
Al, yeah. Give him plenty of a voice so far.
And basically, each week we're going to be discussing the different books that have come up, be it old books and their new adaptations, or old books with old adaptations, or sort of what we feel is appropriate. We just wanted to sort of just start off because this is sort of like a maiden voyage in Morlock and Me. So we wanted to just sort of tell you a bit about ourselves and what we're sort of intending to do. So we are sort of quite big book nerds.
Literary enthusiasts.
And we feel that there's a bit of a niche market that we can sort of just, maybe sit down and have a chat, talk about books. And then instead of just talking about books and being a bit boring, we want to talk about the adaptations of them and sort of discuss and see if it works, because sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it does.
Which doesn't necessarily preclude being boring.
No, it's true.
We'll hope for the best.
Exactly. So that's basically what we're going to be doing. The title of this podcast, Morlock and Me, some people might find confusing, is basically, do you want to explain what Morlock come from?
So Morlock is a term coined by the notable H.G. Wells, and it was something that I'm not sure how, but became part of our everyday vocabulary.
Yeah, it sort of became like almost an insult.
Started referring to each other as Morlocks. So it's just gradually grown.
It was naturally fitting that a literary theme went with the literary podcast.
Yes, of course.
So today we're going to be discussing Sherlock Holmes mainly. And I know there's quite a lot of film adaptations, and we would be here all night. So we've decided to pick the TV adaptation on the BBC, which is Benedict Cumberbatch and Martin Freeman in Sherlock, which is very, very popular, which is fantastic. And we're wanting to compare it to Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's original written works. So we're not really kind of specifying on one episode. We're kind of sort of doing it as a broad spectrum. So that's what we're going to be doing. So I'll start if you'd like.
Yeah.
I should probably let everyone know I'm a massive Sherlock fan.
Yeah,
so this is a treat for me.
This is very much your field.
This is a late Christmas present for myself. So basically, we wanted to talk about characters first and maybe sort of like casting. What do you think? Because you've read it, so like, what do you sort of feel? How do you feel it's been cast? Do you think it's been casted well?
Yes, I like the way it's cast. I love Martin Freeman.
Yes.
I think he's great. I wasn't sure about Benedict Cumberbatch at first, and I'm quite averse to a contemporary adaptation of Sherlock Holmes anyway, but I've warmed to it, certainly after having watched it recently.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say I was a Cumberbatch just yet, but I prefer him to some of the other recent adaptations.
Well, I think Martin Freeman does it really well, because I think especially the older adaptations, like in the Basil Rathbone films, Watson was sort of seen as like a bumbling sort of sidekick fool almost, and he wasn't really taken seriously. Whereas I think Martin Freeman really emulates it quite well, that he's got his own.
He brings a certain dignity.
He's got his. He's a smart man. He's got the military background and the training at Barts, and he's a doctor, and he's got that. He's not a thick man, but he's got that sort of that wit and humour, and it's sort of it's like the parallel opposite to who Sherlock is, which I think works really well. I think Benedict does a really, really good job. When I first heard that they were going to make a modern version, I was really upset. I just think it wasn't going to work. How can you swap, Victorian era sort of like consulting detective with modern day with laptops and mobile phones and everything like that? I thought it was never going to work, but it has, and I think that's fantastic. I think it's really like they've found the right contrast. I think it's done really, really well. What do you think?
Yeah, I approve of the way they use technology, and they bring 21st century technology into what I considered stories that wouldn't allow room for 21st century technology. Without making him into a genius hacker as well, because I was slightly concerned that he'd become a bit of a...
They've kind of substituted sort of like the Baker Street
Yeah.
irregulars form the mobile phone, I
Yeah.
feel. Because he does have his like network, which is the homeless people who
Yeah.
have mobile phones. But even then, it's sort of, he finds everything out.
Yeah,
You know, what
yeah.
he would find out through Telegram, he finds out through mobile. So I think at the moment it's working,
Yeah.
you know.
Well,
I like
was. My initial concern was that they'd turn him into like Q in the new what Q's become in the new James Bond films.
Yeah.
Which was, I was pleasantly surprised that he wasn't like that at all.
Yeah, I think it's done.
Only
done well.
similarity is in the haircuts.
Yeah, it's it's done a good job. It's done. I think it's, and even with Mycroft, I think I like that they've made Mycroft sort of have a bit more of a role instead of him just turning up in a few episodes or, you know, a few books.
Yeah.
I think it's done really well. And also with Lestrade, like they've not made Lestrade like. You know, they've not made him like really thick and like bumbling again, but they've sort of made him that he's smart, but he's those few steps behind.
Yes, there's the characters that you can clearly see, but it's brought into a way that makes it certainly serious.
Yeah, I sort of feel that it's not Anderson, it's I think it's Sally, the sort of second in command to Lestrade. I feel they sort of made her a sort of like Gregson type, where she's smart and she's quick. Like they've sort of not made her to the level that she's a detective inspector as well. They've sort of sort of taken not really second fiddle, because she does have her own mind, which is good. It's nice to see that, because I think especially in the original books, females don't take the sort of, you know, like Mary Watson takes the very, you know, like, oh well, you know, yes dear, you're off on another adventure, I'll wait here at home. Yeah, exactly. And I think the female characters in the adaptation, I feel I'm quite happy about, because like Mary's you know, she's got this second life, as she was an assassin, she was you know, sort of a secret agent almost. You know, she's got her own history, her own power, which I like. Whereas in the book, sort of after a few, you know, Arthur Conan Doyle kills her off so that Watson moves back in with Holmes and they carry on their adventures. So it's kind of, you know...
Watson almost seems thrilled at the
yeah. So it's kind of, you know, I like that women are sort of having a bit more stronger roles and have their own opinions.
Yeah, which of course you can't talk about that without commenting on The Abominable Bride, which
absolutely
I think dealt with the issue of lack of voices of women in Doyle's original work without making it kind of very, very feministy. And
I very much enjoyed. I was very much looking forward to The Abominable Bride, which was obviously I think it was like the 90-minute special that's just come out for Christmas. I was very excited. I think because it is going back into Victorian era.
Yeah,
it's going back to what Conan Doyle originally wrote. You know, there were all the nods to Holmes, like the tobacco in the Persian slipper, and all his unanswered correspondence, you know, on the desk with a knife through them, which I thought was very good. And I thought that, like I agree with you, that they dealt with the whole, you know, this whole thing of the invisible army, and, you know, I think everyone was trying to think what it was, like doing what Watson was doing, like, you know, like socialists or the French, you know, everyone's going, well, what is it? Well, you know, is it, you know, I don't know, who could it be?
Morlocks.
Morlocks, yeah. it's Morlocks. It's an army of Morlocks. But I think I quite like that there was, because you sort of were thinking, they are an invisible army. They were the unheard, you know, people, the unheard generation. It was, and they were just getting their voice.
I think the relationship that was created between Watson as the artist, the writer, and his readership, and a kind of exposition of what the truth was behind that relationship. So the kind of, you know, Watson turning around to Holmes and saying, well, I convinced the public that a crazy addict is a gentleman hero. Sort of, I really like the way they investigate that relationship to the reader, because of course what Watson's readership would have been his money maker. So he would have to make Holmes into a likeable character, and of course the one you see in the show is semi-likeable.
Yes.
But not like I'll cause uproar for me saying that, but he's certainly got traits which would not make him endearing.
Mm.
Particularly not if you're in conversation with him.
Yeah.
But I think creating that relationship and then understanding why Watson betrays him in a certain way is really, it was really well done, actually.
No, I think it was good. I think we were all sort of like holding our breath to sort of, because I think you can get a good Watson. I think because Watson's the human side of Holmes, really, and sort of the humanistic character that we sort of can all relate to, because it's that person that sort of has your best intentions, is always speaking the truth, you know, is the best friend we all have. I think to get the Sherlock right, you really have to, you know, because I think certain people...
Be a bit
weird. Be a high-functioning sociopath.
Well, I mean, Holmes would have never written down his memoirs, so...
No, of course not. It's, I think they did it really well, because I think at the end of the day, you know, I think people usually have to think that if you're Sherlock Holmes, it's like you're some crazy lunatic, or it's like, you know, you've got to be smart in every field. But like, as in the original books have said, he's not well versed in everything. He's well versed in certain bits, and to almost an obsessive level, like that he can distinguish different cigar and cigarette ash to say which one is, you know, who was smoking what.
Yeah. Whereas
on like things maybe on like theology or other things like that, he's not as well versed. I think there's like a famous quote where it's like he didn't really believe that the Earth revolved around the sun.
Yeah.
And it's like, so certain things he's not that up on, but other things he's really well done.
He's very, very focused on the present, the bigger kind of issues, don't matter, which I suppose makes Watson a good counteract to him.
Yeah.
Because I feel like Watson has a far more objective view on which work juxtaposes well to Holmes' single-mindedness.
Yeah, and I think I quite like Martin Freeman's version of Watson, because I think Watson's very sort of like, you know, the one that's, you know, the gentleman, like, you know, he's very proper, he's very, everything's well to do. Whereas I think Martin Freeman is the one that's basically says what we're all thinking, where he's just like, you know, that's brilliant, you know, and, you know, or he's just kind of like, you know, you shouldn't be saying that, or that was a bit too far, you know, he's got that sort of level where, you know, he will turn around and just go, you've gone a bit too far that time, which I quite like, because I think it's that level that we all go, yeah, absolutely, you know, we need that friend to go, you've gone too far this time, which is always good.
That's what I put you for.
Yeah, this is why we're here. So no, I was very happy about that. I think all the characters have done a really, really good job, and I think that's why it's popular. I think because it's got the essence of what the books are.
Yeah.
But it's I don't know, like it's made it that modern twist. That's that whole thing of like you know, we can relate to it in an odd sort of sense.
I'm still not 100% convinced.
Which is fine.
It's
your opinion. It may be wrong. No, I'm joking.
I was disappointed that partway through the show on, was it Saturday?
With the Abominable Bride.
Halfway through the Abominable Bride, they went back to the modern home. I would have just enjoyed it more if it was just a Victorian.
Yeah.
And I understand they needed that link to the show, but I don't know. I was enjoying it being a Victorian era piece of television, and I absolutely loved at the end where it transferred back into the sitting room, and they went, "Oh yeah, no, I was just imagining the future as it might be."
Yeah.
Which I thought was a brilliant way of kind of, again, establishing the relationship to the audience.
Yeah.
Whereabouts are they situated in time?
I like the fact that they were basically sort of casting it as it's a ghost story. You know, it's a Holmes ghost story. But I also think it's good with the element of Moriarty, because the fact is we all know he's dead from the modern day adaptation, because we all saw, you know, he ended his own life. You know, we all know that he's definitely dead. But I think it's the interesting fact that it's like he keeps coming back like a ghost. Yeah. You know, he keeps popping up, you know, just when Holmes thinks he solved the case, he pops up and sort of goes, like, spins it. So he's that sort of constant demon that keeps popping up going, you know, I'm always going to be there to, like, make you second guess, you know, I'm sort of that, you know, monster under the bed that's just not going to go away. But I did like when they sort of put it where they were back on the Reichenbach Falls, and, you know, it's kind of...
See that?
Oh, well, I thought it was good because it was that element of, you know, Moriarty standing over Holmes in like a sort of almost, you know, physical element of I'm over you, and then John comes in. So he's sort of like, John's the, you know, the line he was saying was like, you know, you've got this extensive hard drive and I'm the virus. And it's like, well, kind of, I feel that now what they're trying to say is that I could be completely wrong, but from my interpretation of it was that John coming out in this sort of like, you know, acknowledging that it was, you know, where are we, what's going on, was basically saying that, you know, when Holmes is sort of in his mind palace or he's having all these thoughts, or Moriarty pops up as this like sort of like constant, you know, sort of like element that makes him second guess, John's always there to set him right and to sort of put him back on course. Like, you know, so if he's got the hard drive and Moriarty's the virus, John's kind of like, you know, the antivirus software that always, like, you know, might not be there originally, but he's always there in the background, which I quite like, because
always there to shoot the baddie, right?
Yeah, exactly, to shove him off the cliff. But I think that I like that element because that is what, you know, John is in the books, and it's kind of, you know, they did it in the Victorian version, but sort of he's always been that.
I don't know. It lost me halfway through the Abominable Bride.
Yeah.
But you know, I'm not as big a fan of the television show as you are. I've only seen a few episodes, and for me, I found myself really confused by the point what was going on in the present and trying to discern how that was.
I think a lot of people, because I know I've seen all sort of, it's not really backlash, but it's kind of everyone's kind of gone, what, you know, I think a lot of people were going, what is it? Like, what's going on? I don't understand. However, I do feel, and this might cause some uproar when I say this, but this is just, again, my own personal opinion. I feel if you're just a fan of the show, you might not get it. Whereas if you're a Sherlock fan, you'll get it, because you understand this whole idea of Sherlock and Moriarty and John, of there's this constant fight, this constant, like, you know, as much as Moriarty's the bad guy and much as Sherlock Holmes is the good guy, they are equals. And I think,
no, I
you know,
I
you know, and I understand everyone will know that, but I think it's when you know, even through just leafing through, like after Holmes comes back, you know, and Moriarty's dead and everything, you know, every new case where people are like, oh, this new person, you know, I think it's in like The Master Blackmailer with Charles Augustus Milverton, obviously in the books, you know, he's kind of saying like, you know, oh, if he's anything like the late lamented Professor Moriarty, like he's sort of mourning him in a way. And it's kind of, it's that whole thing of, you know, he's got him, like in the TV series, he's got him as a constant, like, imaginative figure. It's kind of like, it's an obsession. Like, he just can't get the fact that his rival, his, like, actual arch nemesis, his, you know, on top peak rival has gone. You know, he's lost that now forever. And I think that's why he keeps coming back and keeps, like, sort of turning him up. And I think, you know, that's my interpretation. It could be, like, you know, Stephen Moffat might have completely written it in a completely different way. But that's what I feel. As a big, I sort of feel like I've now just completely taken over now because I...
No, it's written, like, I can tell from when we watched it together, you were kind of picking up on every single tiny link to the books.
That's what I feel people don't get, is if they're not die-hard fans, there'll be bits where they go, but I don't understand. Why is he's dead? Why is he coming back? And I think that's the confusion. But, you know, but I feel that the TV series have done a really good job. You can tell they're fans. You can really tell they're fans.
Yeah, you can definitely can.
I think it's...
And as a rule, I don't like BBC adaptations of things.
Yeah.
But I did enjoy that. I did.
You were enjoying it, weren't you?
Yeah, I got really... I mean, I wanted to hide behind the sofa when
we did get scared for it. The Abominable Bride was coming out of nowhere and we knew she was coming and we were hiding at the corner of our eyes. No, I thought, you know, I think...
Because we're grown-ups.
Yeah, because we're grown-ups. No, I think it was really good. I was very proud of them because I think taking on... As much as people go, it's such an old character, it's been done so many times, I think, you know, I think they've done a really good job and I think they've brought back... you know, Sherlock Holmes into the public attention. It's not just an old character anymore, it's Sherlock, and everyone goes, yeah, we know exactly what you're talking about, which I'm very proud of. I'm very happy.
I think that's a good point to conclude on, really.
I think it is. But we hope you've enjoyed this podcast. We are on Twitter, and our sort of Twitter name is Morlock Me, at Morlock Me. We couldn't fit the and in. I don't know why that. Do let us know what you think of this. If you enjoy, if there's anything you want us to change, if there's anything you do actually want us to talk about, because we're always open. We do have a few episodes planned of what we're going to do next. But we would always love to hear feedback, maybe what you want us to cover next, if you want us to maybe branch out further and discuss it a bit more in length. But we'll be back again next week. We'll be here every week.
Man in the High Castle.
Man in the High Castle will be next week. Hopefully you will all enjoy that. Maybe it might go on a bit longer because it's quite new and it's a bit longer than Sherlock. But we'll get to that. We'll get to that.
And when the time, we'll just sit here and talk. And
you can join in our conversation. But we hope you've really enjoyed that, and we will see you next week.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.